Joining me on the sofa today is Dr. Barbara Collins, author, professor, and speaker, who's going to be talking about power in midlife and beyond as we continue the celebration of International Women's Month. Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are across the globe. Welcome to another in the On the Sofa series, because as we celebrate International Women's Month, and I've been looking around me and thinking, who are the women I'd like to talk to get to know, but also who've got something to share that will inspire your life and inspire walking. Today, I have to say with me, I've got Dr. Barbara Collins with me. I've known this lady for quite a while, but it's only recently we've connected. I would say the past two months we've really connected, and we haven't conversed for a long time before that, isn't it, Barbara?
Yeah, it's been a while. I think almost 6 to 7 years we started connecting. Then life kicked in.
Yeah.
And doing our own things, so we had a pause.
Yeah.
It's been that while. It's been a long time. It's so nice, happy to reconnect.
Yes, absolutely. And today I'm going to be talking to Barbara. Do you mind if I call you Barbara?
Of course, that's fine.
We're going to be talking to Barbara about the work that she's doing with us over 50s, but she's championing living life to the full over 50. So, Barbara, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Esther. It's happy to be here. Hello to all your watchers and listeners. So it's an honor. Yes, thank you.
Brilliant. So if I had to ask you, as I usually ask all my guests, a rather boring question to me, but to you, it might be something new. Who is Barbara Collins in a nutshell, in a peanut shell, or maybe a coconut shell?
Oh, wow. Okay. Peanut shell, I'm going to try to do my best quickly.
Timer.
Yeah. Barbara is a woman who has a passionate love and purpose for service. And that framework explains why I have been a school teacher, a professor, a coach, has always been around service. And fortunately, I am a true believer coming from a family of people from the Caribbean. Of course, we know Africa ancestors have created me and the good Lord, this woman who has gone through all kinds of challenges like everybody, but I'm blessed to have learned through all those challenges to learn and grow more. So that's who I am. And I'm still thriving. And I'm just trying to help women feel like I feel after 50 to do more thriving and moving forward.
Nice. I like that word thriving, because it just gives you that sort of visual element of just always moving forward, but you're expanding and growing at the same time.
Yes, yes.
And that's a really nice visual process for me. And Barbara, so share a little bit more about what you do. So you work predominantly with over 50s. And your message is about thriving. So just give us an insight into. Yes. Give me one moment, because my dog, it's like having a child.
I love your dog.
No, you don't.
He always comes in when you're talking about an interesting topic.
Absolutely. And the thing is, I am going to open the door to let him out now.
Okay.
Guaranteed he's not going to want to go out. Then when I shut the door, because it's cold here, he's going to want to go back out. So
should I wait for you to come back?
You just wait for me to come back.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, he's gone. As I said, this is live TV, right? He's gone, but guaranteed he's going to come back in, leave the door open. It's going to be code. And I'm going to sit here trying not to have my vexed face.
I love it. You know, it's interesting, the backstory of why I do this work with women. My mother, when I was in my 30s, was a director of a senior living facility.
Okay.
So she was focused on working and helping women thrive in a senior center. I was able to observe her work while I'm working, raising two kids, busy like everybody in my 40s, 30s. I was not thinking about over 50. But I realized she told me an important quote, a very important word. She said, Barbara, look around this room. Make sure you have planned your life later. Don't wait until you're just younger. Plan it now so you can thrive doing the things you want to do, not have to do. That stuck in my mind, Esther, because as I moved through corporate work and I started thinking about, well, what am I going to do when I decide to go from corporate to what I want to do? So that started my work. The traumatic impetus that thrust me into working with women. I lost my identity through a very difficult divorce. And during the divorce process, I watched my youngest daughter did a monologue in a play, the oldest theater in the United States, Freedom Theater. And we all clapped for her. She did great. She did wonderful. And a woman came on, adult. She was in an adult class. She recited a poem called Who Am I? And guess what, Esther? I'm sitting there. My relatives are sitting after Monique clapped. Tears are coming. I did not know. All I knew was I was a wife, a woman, and a hard worker. And her poem captured me to move into really being clear about my identity. When I left there, I did an intentional work, probably around the age of 45, intentionally, to self-discover who I am really. Because you know what, Esther, you know what, we did not come in here with a blank slate in our DNA. In our DNA, I refer to God as a Christian, we came into this life with so many hidden talents, natural strengths, but you know what happens? Life kicks in, and we forget about our true identity. So between my mother's words and the Freedom Theater woman that, I wonder where she is, I keep talking, I started doing my own.
Sorry, you've music.
Okay, when I attended the play and saw this woman recite a poem called Who Am I? Tears came out of my eyes. I knew I had to do something to regain my identity. So between my mother's comments, words, and the play, the woman recited the poem, I went on my journey of self-discovery. There was no Oprah. I made it my own activities to discover who I am. Of course, I had a therapist on hand if I needed her, but I created activities that are in my book, activities to self-discover me. Wow. And my preface is remember the movie, did you see the movie Sankofa? Years ago.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Sankofa was about a movie about our ancestors who returned to the past in Ghana to discover who they are. So that's my process. So to make a long story short, I made so many activities, but what I discovered was more about me that I forgot.
Wow.
For example, one quick activity I did, and everybody might want to try this. I got together 5 of my best girlfriends from high school and one guy, because I wanted to find out, how did they see me in high school? What was I doing that I was having a lot of fun? And it came easy, naturally. So, you know, you have to feed your friends. I took them out to dinner. And what they said, well, that's easy. You always like to perform in those corny high school plays. It came easy to you. Now, Esther, and I asked myself, why did I forget that? Why did I forget that natural strength in high school? What I discovered is life kicks in.
Yes, it
and
does.
You take it for granted. Unless you are fortunate to have parents who capture that early and nurture it. A lot of research says that when parents capture their natural strength. But sometimes you don't have the parents that know that.
Absolutely.
So I just had all my activities and I discovered. So anyway, I put my activities together to focus my work in helping women rewind to the past, to discover their natural strength, to create identity, to move forward, to create a second half of life that comes easy to them and is what you love to do and it's going to be your purpose. And that's basically where it came from.
Excellent, excellent. Right, so I might put you to the test or to the while we're going through this interview, you know, it would be nice if you could do a process with me so that people can actually see, okay, this is what she's talking about.
Sure.
So is there something that you can, you know, just go easy on me, Barbara, please?
well, it's not, you know, my program is a 5 process. You get no degree, no certificate. It's an evolving process. So the first step is really interesting. Women find it fascinating because we don't think of our values as part of knowing who we are. So if I said to you, Esther, what are your top 5 core values that are important to you? My top core values are integrity, faith, health, and family. Those are my top 5 core values, because a lot of research says, first, if you know your values, what's important to you, you can move forward. So what are your top 5, do you think?
Integrity, authenticity, family, health, truth.
Yeah.
True.
And I see that in you. I see that in you, Esther, very easily. And what I have women do, take one of those core values, okay? If you had a magic wand, what would you want to do with that core value after you over 50 and doing things you want to do? So for example, for my core value, family is critical. You'd be surprised how many women after 50 don't take the opportunity to focus on family. They put themselves last, but family is critical. So we begin a discussion about let's form this process of cultivating a purpose. So core values are really the first one I talk about. So women understand, first of all, you owe yourself time to do some inner explanation. So that's step number 1. Now this may be easy for you, Esther, but a lot of your followers may not find it easy, okay? What was the last compliment somebody gave you? When they saw you do something, what compliment did they give you that stuck in your mind?
Well, it was Sunday because I was up for a nomination for an award. So I went to the award event, and I would say the sort of synonymous compliment was, "You're looking great." And for me, I thought I was just wearing a very simple cream dress, but I got stopped all the time. "Did you make that yourself? You look absolutely incredible." So that was the sort of compliment that I got all night. And that's what I remember.
And how did that impact you in terms of your core values? What did you learn about that compliment? Did you think about the compliment, or did you just pass it on? Was it very important for you to hear that, you know?
It was nice for me to hear it, but it was interesting how I processed it, because I kept on saying, but it's just a very simple dress. And it was a very simple dress. And like someone said, but you could put on a plastic bag and your energy carries it in a certain way. And I guess that's how I see things. I see things, it's just a simple me, but also I valued the feedback as well. Does that make sense?
Yes. And that question is very hard for many women. Easy for you and I think, because we have a strong stance in knowing who we are.
I've evolved into that place, Barbara.
Yes. Yeah, you
And
evolved in it.
evolved. Maybe if you had asked me that some years ago, maybe the answer wouldn't have been the same.
Yeah.
Because I think I've always had a natural ability to say, it's just a dress. It's some, I don't see, it's almost like they're seeing this, and I'm just like, I'm just got my tracksuit on. I've just got this dress on. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's excellent. So women who are listening, if they have a challenge really remembering a compliment, I take them through a process of journaling about that compliment they received. And what did that mean to you? So the journaling helps them to retain something that they either forgot about or poo-pooed away. Because the philosophy around my course is that natural strengths that come easy to them, it's natural strengths we take for granted. For example, there was one woman in my course, and she totally forgot that, and this was a doctor, physician. And when she did the activity, she poo-pooed the fact, I shouldn't say poo-poo, she sort of cast it away, correctly. So many people compliment her on how well she cooks. Every time she cooks, it's so rave reviews, but to her,
yes,
it comes easy.
Yes.
Something, I said, well, that's who you are. That's partly who you are. So as they go through the most important module, when they go through that self-exploration, a lot of things surface in journaling and talking about it because they forgot about it. Okay, they forgot about it. And I had another woman who asked that question. She said, it's interesting because one of the activities after that, to meet with one person one-on-one, somebody that knows you very well. This is not a therapy session. They cannot say anything negative. Just ask them, what characteristic do they see in you? Just one word.
Wow.
You'd be surprised in that activity how people say, well, I never knew that about me. I say, well, sometimes our friends know us better than we know ourselves.
Yes.
And people have had so many awakenings. So you see the Bill starts building to who they are, they intended. So they're journaling this. Many is new information. So for example, back to the physician, when I was coaching her, she said, thank you for taking the shackles off my wrist. I said, wow, no. She said, no. She said, you unleashed an assumption that I had about myself. For example, being a doctor for her, spending all that money on education, she never thought she had a choice. See, a lot of women realize we do have a choice.
Yes.
We do have a choice. And that part of it locks us into our heads that we can't do anything else. For her to even think about leaving to be a doctor, she felt guilty. But through her identity, she says, you know what, Barbara, I can take a course to be a chef part-time. I can take one course. I don't have to quit my job. The second step is called what I call exploring. When you hear the clue, here's the work. When you hear the clue, exploring means to follow that clue. So what do you think she had to do to follow it, to prove that that's really what she wants to do? She signed up for just a small 1-hour class in cooking.
Trial to test out.
So what they have to look for when they're exploring are my words. Does it feel easy? That's very important. Does it feel natural for you? Very important. I read a poem by, I can't think of his name. He said, when you see people being authentic, their eyes lit up, their eyes shine. And I said, when you take that exploration for them one step, do you feel inside of you that your eyes are lighting up? See, those are characteristic descriptions that give you a hint that maybe I want to try this. It feels good. And just journal, just keep journaling about it.
It's interesting because you are about the third or fourth person in the past 2 weeks that there's an emphasis on journaling, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Because I just keep hearing journaling.
I know.
Hearing everything else that you're talking about, but there's the importance of journaling, and you said something quite significant there, Barbara, in terms of you will find something you sort of alluded to. You will find something about yourself that you had forgotten.
Yeah,
and that's really powerful, because I would surmise that, especially when you're dealing with women over 50, they've gone through life, like you said, whether they were mothers or their careers. And, as they've gone through life, they've chipped away at who they are.
It does.
So when you're asking these pertinent questions, I'm sure it takes time for people to even comprehend them in mind what you've asked, because it's almost like, for the first time in a long time, someone is asking me about me.
Yes, that's a key. That's why I call it my book, It's Your Turn Now. It's really your turn. And the women that I see really embrace that as something really new. They never thought about it's my turn. I said, well, think about it. Think about your age. It really is your turn. And also the Sankofa process I use, all you're doing is returning to the past, to who you really are, came in this world to be. That's all you're doing. But journaling helps you to reflect and think about it. There is a recent, I listened to the podcast for Anthony Burrow, a professor at Cornell University. He's African American. I almost jumped out of the bed when I listened to his podcast. I said, oh my God, he's talking about what I do. He did research studies, Esther, on cultivating your purpose. I said, oh my God, that's me. What I discovered in his research, and I emailed him, is that one of the pathways to discover your purpose, there's three of them he has. One of your pathways to discover your purpose is that example I just did. Return to the past. Remember what you did that came easy to you, and cultivate it. If this is a process, it doesn't happen overnight. Okay. What I did, one of my steps, I thought I would love photography. I don't know why. I heard the acting part. I'll tell you about that journey. I said, I'm going to take a photography class. Guess what happened? When he started talking about math, depth of field, I said, oh, not me, done. I'm out of here. And that's okay. You might find out, well, this is not it, but that's part of the exploring part. If it doesn't meet the three anchors that I shared, move on to something else. Tony Robbins always says, when you discover results and you don't like one, it's not failure, it's just results. It's just results. Take it in, rewind, and do something else. So that's really important in my process, because it's never a point about failing something it's if you like it. Does it come easy? Does it light up inside of you? Does it feel authentic? That's why journaling is so important, really important. And the three other steps, but this, I think that step is critical when they start to, and also, I want to share that this is not easy work. Fear creeps up. Do I have the courage? Do I feel worthy? Do I feel worthy of looking inside of me? That's why journaling is critical. And that's why coaching women through it to keep going, because and that you don't get a degree. Once you finish my step, this is like evolving, or Esther, you evolve to one day, you say, well, that's it. I got it.
It's life, isn't it? You get your life degree, or a life.
Right.
a life Oscar, because like you said, it's like an evolving door. But
It evolves.
but there's something key that I'd like to ask you, Barbara, because you talk about going back to the past to remember
Yeah.
who you were. But what if you've had a traumatic past childhood?
That's very important because in the Sankofa process, the principle of Sankofa is this. When Ghana was colonized, they were freed in 1968. And Sankofa means return to the past. So what they did, they returned to the past and realized they were kings and queens
Absolutely.
that exported gold. They were a rich country. And they had to return to that and remember that. So when I asked women to try to return to the past, I said, here's the principle. We're not returning to past your trauma. Because my caveat is this: if you feel you need therapy, because I'm not a therapist, but if you have a hard time returning to the past, go get counseling. Mental health is critical. And I can catch that with them. If they have a hard time, I said, sometimes your process means you need some extra help.
Yes.
That I cannot give you. My disclaimer is always, I'm not a therapist, I'm a coach.
Okay.
But I can recognize if somebody is suffering from a lack of courage, maybe a therapist, because a lot of people, women of color, I don't care what color you are. Sometimes therapy is a threat, but sometimes counseling can be a signal to help you move forward. Because it happened to me. I sound really big about this identity. When I was writing it, I had trauma. Remember they said, of course, Barbara, you were a performer in high school. Well, Esther, that's all in good, but I was in my 40s. So what am I supposed to do? Looking myself. Based on what I teach, coach, I was supposed to take a course in acting. Following my own step. I had the opportunity to take a course. They were challenging me, well, Barbara, now you've discovered in this conversation with your friends that you love to act. So what now? I said, oh my goodness, I have to take a course. He said, yes, you do, based on practice what you preach. That signing up for a course, Esther, was the most terrifying thing I have ever done. Because I had to prove to myself that I was worthy of checking it out.
Wow.
So the director of my daughter's acting class, Tom said, Barbara, I can't count how many times you always said you're going to take a course. You're not taking it. You always say it, you don't do it. I said, no, I'm going to do it. But I had to go to my therapist to help me deal with courage to move through it. Because that was hard. Yeah. But I did it. I'm thankful that I moved through this. Sometimes women have to move through the fear, get help with the fear, talk to a friend about the fear. But if it gets too traumatic, in my disclaimer before the course, I said, make sure you step off and get therapy. But I went through that fear myself. I was terrified. I had to audition. I said, well, Tom, can't you give me a
one-to-one?
He said, no. He said, here's the script. Be here at 7:00 Saturday morning with the other people. I said, oh, Tom. He said, yes, if you really want to see if this is what you want, you have to go through it like everybody else does. Well, my God, Esther, I was sitting on the audition bench with 12-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 6-year-olds. I said, why would he put me? He said, Barbara, this is what we do. Guess what the monologue was about?
What?
The monologue, I think he did it on purpose. The monologue was a prostitute was trying to recover, and there was some bad words in it. I said, Tom, I can't do this. He said, do you want to act? I said, yes, well, you can do this. So I practiced in front of my girlfriends in a restaurant in the back. And they looked at me when I was done. Esther, they said, you can hear a pin drop. You did that so naturally.
Wow.
I wasn't thinking about it. I just, moving through the fear was the best thing I've ever done. It wasn't about failure. It's about checking it out.
results.
It would not have been failure if I decided, you see what I'm saying? If it didn't work, I would have stepped off, but it worked.
And it's interesting that saying feel the fear and do it anyway. And you know that so many of us, I mean, people see me always moving through, and you know, they said you're just blazing through. I'm like, yeah, I'm blazing through. It doesn't mean sometimes that I'm not scared. It doesn't mean that I don't have doubts. And I remember a couple of months ago, because this happens maybe a few times a year, but sometimes I get locked into this fear. I think it was around finances, because I had run a bit short, and I found myself spiraling, into all this stuff. And I caught it because I can feel the energy. And what I usually do, I've got my little Mary Poppins toolkit, and in that toolkit, I've got dance, I've got meditation, I've got prayer, I've got
Me too.
grab a bar of chocolate,
Yes.
and exercise. That's always been so. It in that space of fear. And I was actually surprised that it had locked me in. It had locked me in so tight before I realized how deep I had been locked in. But then because I was aware that I was locked in and I didn't want to stay there, I had to try to address, okay, what was I thinking that's locked me into this place?
Yeah.
And then what can I do about it? And there's that saying, false expectation appearing real. So I had to really talk myself through, it's okay. Because on occasion, I do believe no matter how strong we are, whatever, we have our moments. I have my moments.
We do. I have mine, yeah.
I have my moments. But then I remember I've got some weights here, so I'll put on the thing and I'll do a workout. Because when I'm working out with weights, I'm breathing. You've got to breathe, isn't it? And then you put on some music, you jiggle everything around.
Right.
And I love it. And I do remember it took me probably about 2 days to really, because it kept on coming at me. And I'm like, and I remember saying to myself, it's not that. Because it wasn't what was in there, it's not that. And so what I'm hearing from you, Barbara, is, what you offer and what you do is a process. You offer this coaching package, but also you are giving your clients tools. Tools.
They're all tools.
And also as a coach, you don't share, but you're sharing your experiences because of this interview, but also because for anyone who's listening to this, because you've shared your process in some of your experiences, they will be able to see, actually, I remember, And so this is what you did. So then it would help them to look around, scratch around in their toolkit, or even to put together a toolkit. We need to put together a toolkit now.
I love toolkits. Yeah. I love the metaphor. I have a whole thing about in the course, build your own toolbox, start putting things in it to help you through that fear, the way you talked about it. That toolbox is like filling your purse with things that are going to get you through life or events. So I'm glad you mentioned the toolbox, because that is so important. Absolutely. It doesn't have to be empty.
Yeah.
So the journaling, so the toolbox, I love that. I love it. Excellent. Well, so all have things, And no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
And so in sort of winding down, you talked about your book. Tell us a little bit more about your book, because I like the title, It's Your Turn Now, because as women, we're always giving.
Oh, yes.
Giving. And so I'm sure when someone says to someone, it's your turn now, I guess the question would be, where do I start?
Yeah. And that book really helped me when I was really creating my purpose after 50. I said to myself, well, it's my turn. So it's really my story about how I started, my turn, and all of the activities I did and the Sankofa process is really my story how it moves through saying and accepting the fact that it is my turn. And once I did that, I was able to release to go through the next phase because I started building my own second half of life. Okay. Doing things I just want women to enjoy like we enjoy, Esther. We're enjoying, we're thriving in our second half. Okay. So the second book I wrote is Power in Midlife and Beyond. And I think that book really outlines the power you feel when you are doing things that are authentic, you know? Authenticity is such a beautiful thing to feel. Nobody can take that away from you.
Absolutely, because it's your divine essence, and it doesn't matter. And you're not following what other people are doing. You're not falling into sometimes places that people drag you into. I'm not part of that. This is who I am. This is where I'm prepared to stay, regardless to what's going on around me. And if it means I sit alone and eat alone, I'm being authentic to me.
Right. And that is a process. But women deserve to, just like you said, the light in your eyes will shine when you walk. A minister woman friend of mine says this: when you're authentic, you're walking in your zone. You are in their zone, and nobody can take that aura away from you. And people will look at you differently. They will when you suffer that part of your life. So I'm glad the way you said it.
Excellent. And that winds this down so nicely. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my utmost pleasure and privilege to talk. I would say to conversate.
Conversate. Yes. I enjoyed it every minute, Esther. You light up the whole, Esther, you light up the whole frame. So
so do you. So do you.
Thank you.
This is a message that I know, especially, and it's not just for International Women's Month. This is a message that we should all take with throughout our lives. And you can imagine. I mean, I've been listening to this on Facebook and on YouTube. There's quite a lot of stories around people, women, people who've been through the most horrific experiences. And a lot of it's been around sexual abuse from family, friends, parents.
So many.
Physical. There's so much. And I'm just hoping that if someone's in a space today and they hear this, they watch this, that it will give them hope that they can come it. And all those
I do too. I wish that for them also. But it's been an honor and a joy to share this space with you, Esther.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Barbara Collins. Frames worn by Esther Austin on the show today are sponsored by Run It First.